Hello, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. What are we at here? We're at we're at March 29th. This month is like gone fast, at least for me, but yeah. I hope you guys are having a really good Tuesday. We got Monday behind us. That's a good thing. And yeah, today we're going to be continuing on. Today is part 2 of a 5-part series I'm doing this week, and well, it's not the easiest topics to dive into, but we're talking about abusive relationships, narcissistic people, that kind of thing, and the effects that happen with that, the emotional abuse, the sometimes physical abuse, but also the traits and the patterns that we end up building when we're going through these types of relationships and working through that. A lot of times we can get misguided a little bit on, are we actually now engaging in emotional abuse? Are we actually coming to a place that we're forming patterns and routines that we get so stuck on what other people are doing that we start to lose sight that our own position of resentment and anger and all of these things start to fuel how we start treating the other people that are in our life? And that's a dangerous place to get to, because then that creates it to where you become the emotional abuser. And when we think of emotional abuse, we always typically think, oh, well, that's somebody doing that to me. No, sometimes it's you doing it to you. So we have to start to learn these practices and learn these things. Now, guys, I'm kind of in a different setup today. So if you can't hear me well or anything, please, by all means, let me know, and I will try to adjust. I'm hoping that I have this kind of sorted out here. I was kind of doing some testing before the show. But Mark, Allison, so good to see you guys. Welcome. So we're going to dive in here. So today we are talking about the reality of emotional abuse. Now, the thing is, that's something that can happen to anybody. Anybody. Anyone who can become emotionally abusive in an intimate relationship. And the path to emotional abuse begins at the point where resentment starts to outweigh compassion. Resentment is a predominant emotional state in our age of entitlement. Because we perceive ourselves to have more of a right to feel good than previous generations. And it follows that those around us have an obligation to make us feel good. Resentment is a very misguided attempt to transfer pain to somebody else, specifically the shame of failure to feel good. For example, to create more value, meaning, and purpose in our lives. Blaming this core failure on someone else justifies a sense of self-righteousness, along with low-grade anger, which temporarily makes us feel more powerful. But that temporary empowerment comes at the cost of making an enemy out of that beloved. One problem with resentment is that it builds kind of under our radar, so that by the time you're aware that you're resentful, well, it's already reached like an advanced stage. You don't realize how much it's taken over your life until, well, through therapy or some life-changing event, you become more compassionate and look back on maybe the years that you've wasted being resentful. And eventually, usually with regret, you realize that the pain you have suffered and the harm you have inflicted due to that resentment. Resentment can become an absolute bear, an absolute poison in your system. Listen, when we hold on to that resentment, that you're just dragging this heavy blanket over you. And then when you go into a relationship, and when we talk about relationships, this can impact your friendships, your relationship with family members, your romantic relationship, your work relationships. But that resentment creates this toxic poison that you're just fueling yourself with. You're fueling, resentment's a beast. Because resentment makes you feel like a victim. It feels like someone else is controlling your thoughts, feelings, behavior. And it comes with built-in retaliation impulse. If you're resentful, you're probably in some way emotionally abusive to the people that you love. You've devalued, demeaned, sought to control or manipulate, and deliberately hurt the feelings of loved ones due to resentment. But you've been so focused on what you don't like about maybe their behavior that you haven't noticed what you don't like about your own. You probably have not grasped that resentment has made you into somebody that you're not. But that resentment gets heavy. It changes us. It molds a different perspective sometimes. So I'm going to share with you now. Here's how to tell if you are an emotionally abusive man or woman. Because it's not just, it is relates to all of us. Now, first, guys, I'm going to be talking to you. So, for you guys out there, does it feel like that your wife or girlfriend pushes your buttons? You know, does she have a way of kind of putting you in a bad mood? Are there times when you don't want to speak to her or be around her? Do you feel like you overlook a lot or swallow a lot until you just can't stand it anymore? Does she frequently, do things the wrong way? Can you be having a nice time and then out of nowhere, she says or does something that just sets you off? Are you sometimes on edge about having a bad or unpleasant evening? Does it feel like you have to criticize her for not being more efficient, more reliable, or a better person? Does it feel like she makes you yell or shut down when you really don't want to raise your voice or be in a bad mood at all? Do you treat her in ways you couldn't have imagined when you first started loving her or being in there? Now, if you answered yes to anything I just said, well, let me share some things that she is probably thinking about you or says about you. Oh my God, he's so moody. He doesn't see or hear me. I feel like I'm his possession. I can't be myself. I have to think, feel, and behave the way that he wants. Nothing I do is good enough. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Now, to you women, tell me how this applies to you. Do you sometimes make your man feel like a failure as a provider, partner, parent, or lover? Do you feel like you have to tell him the same thing over and over and over again? Does he tell you that sometimes, you yell and scream or lash out at him? Do your friends, your girlfriends, ever remark that you might treat him badly? Do you automatically blame him when things go wrong? Do you resort to name calling, swearing at him, putting him down? Do you demean or belittle him in front of other people or even your children? Do you threaten to take his children away so he'll never see them? Are you often jealous and want to know where he is all the time? Would your family and friends be surprised to know how you treat him behind closed doors? Now, if you answered yes to any of those ladies, well, let me share some things that your husband or boyfriend is probably saying or thinking about you. She's a nag. Oh my God, she's so moody. She's so unpleasant to be around. I just want her to leave me alone. Nothing I do is good enough. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Those things, when we hold on to those aspects, guys and girls, when we hold on to this mindset sometimes, do you know what one of the big problem is? Is that there tends to be a lack of communication when you're starting to feel these things. And then, guess what? You start building that monster of resentment. You start building the toxins. You start building the poison between you. And you start developing this pattern that now You're not helping your relationship. You're harming that relationship. So, oh my God, such misery. What is the way out? What's our way out? I'm going to tell you, it's self compassion. Self compassion begins with greater sensitivity to the resentment that causes emotional abuse. It is sympathy for the perceived hurt or loss of self value that causes resentment. So, most importantly, it includes the motivation to heal and improve. So, since the experience of resentment rarely improves anything and never heals the hurt that caused it, most resentment and all acts of abuse are failures of self compassion. So, as we develop more self compassion, we are motivated less by temporary feelings and more by our deepest values. So, as a result, we automatically become more compassionate to the people that we love. Listen, the key to a successful relationship is maintaining a sometimes delicate balance between self compassion and compassion for loved ones. A lot of times we can get stuck sometimes. Well, we start to layer things up. Why? Because we don't communicate. Listen, I'm telling you this from, again, I've been a psychologist for 25 years, and I've been working with couples for 25 years. And do you know what the number one reason that couples break up over is? You know what it is? Communication. Communication. How do you feel? What's going on? Are you conveying it? If your person does something and it upsets you, well, if you just assume that they know what they did and you just start assuming everything, well, guess what you're going to end up starting to do? You're going to end up starting to have the whole conversation and argument and everything in your own head. You've decided the conversation, you've decided all the answers, and you've decided the outcome, and you never even brought it up to your other person. And then you start layering that process. Layer upon layer upon layer. That's your resentment building over and over and over again until, guess what? Oh my God, he didn't put the seat down. World War III, people. Because it's going to ignite. It's going to explode. And it'll explode usually over something so small and stupid. But it's not, in your brain, it's not about leaving the seat down. It's about the 26 other things that you never brought to the surface to talk about because you let your own self continue to just harbor and build and harbor and build and harbor and build. And then it's going to ignite. And then what happens? Well, now it's like it's chaos. Now you run the risk of absolutely destroying that relationship, destroying that marriage, destroying that friendship. Why? All because we didn't handle things accordingly and because we lost sight of self-compassion and self-understanding and self-awareness of how we are going to project and how we are going to deal with resentment. Remember, resentment is a predominantly emotional state that we allow ourselves to be in. But so is anger. So is frustration. So is all of these things where we have to learn our gauge of where we are and what we are going to convey and what kind of aspect we are going to put into resolving conflict before we turn to the negative acts of nagging, putting somebody down, demeaning, devaluing, degrading, making somebody feel less than, breaking somebody down with their self-worth, because you're angry. So you want to get back at that person in that moment. And people, listen, the emotional abuse factor is something that we could sit and we could break this down and come up with like 100 things on this list that technically fall under emotional abuse. And when we get angry and we get frustrated, we get mad, or we feel like we're not heard and all of these things, it drives us to sometimes attack. We want to attack. We want to get into attack mode because that keeps us in a position where we feel like, oh, well, I'm in control. I'm going to make you feel what you've done to me. I'm going to make you feel this. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say something hurtful that I know is going to hurt you. I'm going to attack some aspect of your integrity. I'm going to attack some aspect about you because it's going to make me feel better temporarily. Please notice I just said temporarily. Because if you are a compassionate person and you have a heart, let me tell you something, that temporary is going to fade off, and hopefully you will come back around and you'll realize what it is you said and did that maybe was hurtful. And that's whenever that apology comes up, that hopefully is a heartfelt apology, But listen, don't let yourself build up resentment and then you start creating a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that's what a lot of people do. And let me tell you something. Lack of communication over and over again, where you just shut down, you don't talk, you leave the other person just to assume what you're feeling and thinking. I promise you, as sure as I'm sitting here, that relationship is going to go south. You're going to end up one day that you feel emotionally abused. You have been an emotional abuser, and neither one of you are talking to one another, and you've left to assumptions, and you're doing all this stuff in your own space without any actual resolving of anything. Just pain and hurt and resentment. And that's what you end up left with. When it doesn't need to be that way at all. Because we maintain self-compassion, self-awareness, and compassion for other people. We're all human beings. We are all going to fuck up, my friends. We are all going to make some bad choices sometimes. We are all going to make some mistakes. We are all going to stumble and fall sometimes, and then we got to get back up. And we got to realize that about everybody, especially the people that we love, the people that we've tied into, the people that we are building our lives with, the people that we've connected our heart to, the people that we have gone through the good and the bad. Okay? We are all human beings. We are all going to be subject sometimes to downfalls. So it's about how are we going to do that? And are we going to hurt the people we love just because we don't want to take enough time to have that self-awareness, to understand what we're saying, how we're going to come about, what our actions say? Are we just going to tear down the people we love because we're just angry at them? How dare you say that to me? I can't believe you did that. I can't believe this happened in public. Well, they probably can say the same thing about you sometimes. Listen, I've had some crazy mistakes in my life. I made some bad choices in relationships. I've pissed off the people I've been with, hurt their feelings, said something I shouldn't have said because I said it out of anger. I promise you this though, I did come around, and I felt horrible about it. I wanted to let go of my resentment. I wanted to let go of my anger. I wanted to let go of that frustration, and I had to learn myself. I mean, especially early on in life, man. Young people today, forget about it. Like, that's a process. Most people today, man, it's operating on such a shallow basis. Discussing any kind of relevance of the aspect of self-compassion seems like over and above. Unless you're talking about TikTok or Facebook or something like that. Most people are not really geared up for really thinking about the deep and heavy when it comes to a relationship and how to maintain one. And that's sad. Well, guess what? We're all here. We're all connected. Let's start leading by example. Let's find that place of compassion. Let's find that place where we can show that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to deal with resentment this way. You got kids? Start teaching your kids early right now about don't harbor a grudge. Don't carry that negative crap into your life. Don't do all of these things. Fix it. Fix it. Make amends. Do not cut somebody down. Do not demean. Do not devalue. Do not degrade. Guys, this is even more of an important step for men to equate when you're dealing with a woman. And it's a very much a strong point if you have a son. You train that son. You don't degrade and devalue and demean women. There's nothing cool about it. And I promise you it forms a very bad place. So how do we do this? We lead by example. As a society, we need to start leading by example. We got to start showing each other that compassion, showing each other that empathy, showing each other that love, showing each other, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. And when you're in a relationship, guess what? All of this needs to be reciprocal. You know, emotional abuse can be tailored down. And are we never ever going to emotionally abuse somebody? No, you're going to. You're going to. Sometimes inadvertently, sometimes you don't mean to. It's a mistake. You say the wrong thing in a moment. You didn't know A, B, and C about a situation. Put your foot in your mouth, that kind of thing. It's going to happen. But it's about how you deal with it. It's about how you deal with it, how you take care of it. And it starts with how do you take care of yourself? And do you have a good gauge and a good value system for the level of integrity, the level of self-respect, the level of self-love, the level of self-care, the level of self-compassion, the level of compassion for others? That's where it comes down to. All right, guys, I'm opening up the stage. If anybody wants to come up here and share some thoughts, ask a question, I would like to invite you up at this time. Today, for those who came in, this is part 2 of a 5-part series, and talking about relationships, but we're also talking about like different aspects of relationships. So we were talking about like coming out of like narcissistic relationships, people that really. Deanna, I'm so glad you're coming up, and but we're kind of diving into this on a lot of different platforms, and this goes on through Friday. So I definitely glad you guys are here. Please don't miss a day. It's gonna be a very powerful week. I got some guest speakers coming in on Thursday and Friday to share a very, very powerful story. Don't miss that. Deanna, happy Tuesday to you. Welcome up. How are you?
No, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good. 2 points that I picked up from this. One, interestingly, when I was just doing some research on some statistics for a talk that I was doing, one of the things that came up with marriage, right? So 53, I think, in the United States, percent of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
And used to be the number one reason stated, on the document was marital infidelity. Now that has switched to financial infidelity. And
Mm.
it really goes to your point of communication, right?
Right.
Because financial infidelity is something where, like either you're not telling your spouse that you lost your job, or
Right.
you're buying things and ordering things and hiding them and being like, oh, that's old, that type of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Or maxing out credit cards and putting your family in financial stress because you have maybe shopping as your way of coping or whatever it is,
Hey,
right? But,
there was a sale at Amazon. That's right.
right. And so, and then that financial infidelity is now being stated as bigger than marital infidelity, which like just goes straight to the point of communication. And
Agreed.
then the other thing that stood out to me, and you can enlighten me on this, because again, I'm doing research. I work from a coaching aspect, so I go from here forward and just helping with mindset, and you dig into people's past more. Um, so, when you think about self compassion,
Hmm.
and you think about someone who has gotten into a habit of being emotionally abusive. Not that, oh, I didn't mean it how you handle it, but we've all been in relationships. I was in an 18-year abusive relationship. How that person treated themselves, even if it wasn't necessarily their parents. Like, I get that there's a cycle, and sometimes people come out of abusive households, and that plays into it. Fathers teaching their sons, all of that thing. But are there places where you beat yourself up so much as a kid and standards and expectations, and then you find yourself then allowing those boundaries to be smeared in a relationship? In other words, this is something I've been looking into. My childhood was pretty decent. I didn't come from that cycle, and I'm trying to figure out how I wound up in the cycle. And one of the things that I was looking at was this, like high expectations, overachiever, going to a
Hmm.
magnet
Hmm.
charter, college prep school that you had to be tested to get into. All of these things build up these expectations. And when you don't meet them, the standard that you were held to, you beat yourself up just as much as whatever else in your environment. And does
Yeah.
that lend itself to allowing yourself to be in a relationship where emotionally, if not physically, you get beat up as well? I don't know. That's a question I'm putting to you.
Okay, and I'm gonna and you correct me if I'm going down the wrong avenue here to answer this question, but I think I know where you're what you just said. But the thing is I'm going to say yes based on what you just said. You can develop that aspect because, for example, if you start getting used to the fact, in other words, you if you don't achieve something and you make that okay, for example, right? Or you just live with it. You learn to deal with that situation. Well, in that scope, that you take that mindset, you take that functionality of the brain, and you now can apply that into other areas where you may not be seen or feeling like you're achieving something. In a relationship or
Okay.
with a partner, that kind of thing.
Actually, so yeah, okay, I can see that too. So, but I guess I was saying the flip side. Like, in other words, not having compassion for yourself growing up and
Yeah.
beating yourself up is allowing you not to have compassion in your relationships, which also
Right.
might lend itself to allowing someone to be emotionally abusive towards you, or the flip side where you expect things that maybe you should not expect from your partner. But I was kind of applying it to me like, hey, was I not self compassionate? And I don't know, this is just kind of things that you're just kind of making me think about right now.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
did I not have that compassion for myself? And then as an adult, that carried over. And then
Yeah.
and then it allowed me to be in a relationship that the person that was with me also did not have that compassion for me either.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right there. Yes. Yes, that totally can it relates because you've built that inside of your own psyche. You've built that inside of yourself, and then your brain will make it to where you will give allotment for things like that. I mean, to where you can allow that to happen, and you know, so it definitely bleeds over.
Yeah, it's complex. I just was, just thinking on that. It kind of spurred some thinking. I have
Yeah.
to do some.
No, me and you could do it. Me and you could probably do a 3-hour show on that topic alone.
Yeah.
So, um, but yes, I mean, because when you that the aspect of self compassion and the aspect of when you hold that, how when you go into any new relationship, all right. Well, a lot of times we are not looking at what we're presenting into that relationship from our own standpoint. Like we get enamored with other aspects. We get we're taken with a whole different initial scope into that relationship, but to really look at, all right, well, who am I and where am I at? What have I come from? All right, that's an area where if we could sit back and really start being more focused on that first before we enter into that relationship, that's going to create a different avenue to where, for example, we're able to start noticing what is our self compassion, what is our self worth system, what's our what are we going to accept and what are we not going to accept. Well, sadly, that's just not a place that most people are going to go to early on. But all of the things, I mean, that aspect of the self compassion early on in childhood, in your teenage years, in your young adult years, well, whatever you've built right then absolutely is going to have a direct impact on what it is you're going to allow other people to do to you because you've been doing it to yourself. So you've created a pattern. And sometimes we have to break that pattern, but we have to be able to see that pattern in order to break it.
And there it is, the awareness and something else you said today about, being aware so that you can actually confront this. And we just can't change stuff that we don't confront. And so that's another thing you brought up that just was like, bing, yeah. Mhm.
Right. Right. I mean, it's like, I wish, I mean, it would be so great to be able to, you know, you know, instantly just kind of pour in some understanding on most of these things, but it's not. It's like a place where we really have to get to a place where we're able to take pause, look at ourselves, and realize what's our scope about ourselves. What is our scope about our compassion about us? And are we falling? Are we being lackluster about it? Are we just kind of accepting less than just because that's what we've made normal? That's what we've made an okay thing, and it's not. Because see, and that's the other thing. That's where you open yourself up to the emotional abuse. You open yourself up, but that abuse, though, you're doing it to yourself too. You're doing it to yourself first. Plus, you're making it okay for the person that you're with. You know, and especially being able to identify when you really understand self compassion, you can become more attuned to that. Your radar can actually go off when you meet somebody. You can tell what their self compassion is. What is their self awareness? And that's where a lot of people are just missing it these days, where they're not taking the time to really know what that means and really take heed of it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's I don't know. We're all such a work in progress, but I feel like
Always.
conversations that we're having now that we didn't have, say, 10 years ago, that we didn't have before being locked down. I think that these
Hmm.
conversations are definitely going to create some positive change moving forward, and hopefully generational changes.
That's what we need right there. We need some generational change. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, good. I hope I answered your question to a degree here. Like I said, you asked a very deep question, and we could dive into that as its own show sometime. So
Yeah, you did, and by all means, we need to schedule something. I'm gonna hop back down. My granddaughter just arrived, and
okay.
but yeah, I appreciate the input always and the insight.
Hey, you as well, love. Thank you for jumping up here, and have a happy Tuesday to you. Anybody else want to come up? Now's your time to do so before I close this space out. Miss Marilee, I was hoping that you would come up here. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm doing really good. I was listening, and I planned to just listen, but you put that big on me.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm going to put my 2 cents in here. So as I'm listening, I'm thinking to myself, maybe we should add a couple more things. The divorce rate is high. You're absolutely right, but first it was infidelity, is what Deanna was saying, and then it's
Mhm.
financial infidelity. But what I
Right.
find is actually very true and more true is that we don't know ourselves and we don't know how to identify our partner. So when we make that commitment to get married, we literally take that leap of faith that on the average takes $250,000 by the time the ring, the wedding, the house, the one child. This is what you're willing to
Yeah.
invest and actually risk before knowing who you are and knowing what you
Hmm.
stand for. So, now that you've already crossed the threshold, you know, and you're in that day to day, and things start to bug and irritate, and you start to, give the silent treatment and all the stuff that you're talking about, you didn't recognize all these things prior to saying I do.
Yeah, you got that right.
Right? Okay. So
Yeah.
now, yeah. So now that you're on the other side, it's like you're starting to become aware. And I have found that, when talking to people, when
Hmm.
they say they've been in an abusive relationship, it's only that
Right.
the other partner is louder. It's not
Hmm.
abusive, it's toxic.
Right.
So, you're right. So we need to take responsibility for that part of that potion.
Right. Right. Well, and you know what? I'm gonna come back to also. I'm gonna come back to the fact that the everything you just said, everything Deanna said, still comes back down to how do we communicate? How do we communicate what we're feeling? How do we communicate where we are? How do we communicate what we're thinking? All of these things. What's our plans? What's our goals? We don't communicate this clear enough.
Right. And because
We
there's no rules for communication,
That's right.
everything is it's just open to however I feel emotionally and the
That's
vocabulary
right.
that I carry, right? And whatever faux
Well, and
pas I
then
make, yeah, you're going to excuse my behavior
right,
because I'm
but
mad.
it also comes. That's right, because you're mad, and then it comes down to assumption. That's when you
Right.
get into that gambit where, oh, well, I'm already, I'm mad at you, but I'm already having the conversation in my brain. So when you're talking, I'm not really listening because I need you to hear me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm
Mm-hmm.
mad. I'm mad at what
Mm-hmm.
you did. But again, it comes down to communication. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all of it, the financial stuff, all of it. And so when
Right.
you enter, when you're, go ahead,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the communication part, if we cross that threshold and then figure, oh gosh, I learned that I'm not a very good communicator, I'm going to try to communicate, the damage is already done. There's been so much abuse, verbal abuse, like you were talking about, disrespect, demeaning, name
Yeah,
calling. All of these things have already
yeah,
happened. So you know that your partner is already capable of crossing that line.
that's right. And
And
now
you've
the
accepted
resentment
it.
builds.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
you've accepted it. So now, all right, I'm going to communicate better. I don't like that. Now there's an expectation. Did you hear me? I want you to stop.
Right,
And
right.
it doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that.
No, you're right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And again, and then we come back to the resentment. And you start building resentment, and you're not dealing with it. You're not talking about it. You're just letting it build. You're harboring until it is going to explode in the most opportune time, but in the
Right.
most epic way. And guess what? Now you've most likely destroyed that relationship.
Oh, it's done. And in that moment, you're getting so angry at your partner because you're expecting them to honor, the boundary, quote unquote, saying, don't talk to me that way, don't treat me like this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're not taking responsibility that you already signed on the dotted line. You already accepted all that behavior,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
right? It was a
That's right.
contract and you
That's
walked
right.
over. Yep.
That's it.
But yeah, so it's like, well, now what are you going to do? Now you're on your way out. How long is it going to take you to get out?
That's it.
Right? Yeah, some
That's it.
people it's 20 years and 12 therapists and everything
Yeah.
else, and it's
And
just like, nope,
the
before
other
it's over.
sad point, is that you get out of that relationship and you go right back to another same scenario
Right.
because you didn't take the time in between to sort you and figure yourself out and figure out what your self compassion truly is.
Right. You still don't know who you are, what you're bringing to the table.
That's right. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what? But I don't want to be alone, Miss Merrily. So I'm gonna go right back
Right.
to it. I'm gonna go back right to it because why? It's comfortable for me now. I'm used to it. You want to fight? Bring it.
Right.
I've been doing this for 10 years, so yeah, you're not.
And that's called self-sacrifice.
So
Because I don't want to be alone. I'm going to try to find the right one over and over again, and I can't find the right one. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't find the right one because you aren't the right one.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Bingo!
that's my
Hit the
2 cents
nail
for
on the
this
head.
morning.
No, I love it. I love it.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you for
Thank
letting me come up here and give my rant.
No, absolutely, no, it's good. I always love when you do, and yeah, and if you guys are not following Miss Merrily, please do. She does several epic shows, but definitely tell everybody what you're doing, like with Equally Yoked and all that, and the Miss Merrily show.
Equally Yoked is Monday nights, and that's basically to help us align with love. To open our perspective, to see ourselves and understand who we are and how we think, and then how to see it through the eyes of love. Sunday mornings at 11, I do the Merrily Show. The Merrily Show is, again, about love. Everything I do is about love. But that's on video. And what I like to do is I take articles and, books and things that we have come to know and accept as truth. And then I question it. And I say, okay, but what about this? So let's look at it from this angle. Let's get
Yeah,
some clarity here, right? Yeah. And
there
then
you
the
go.
Cracking the Rich Code are all my co-authors that are absolutely amazing. They come with a bunch of knowledge and wisdom from their expertise, whatever the industry they're in, and they come and share, and we get to talk to them. So yeah, it's cool. Thank
There you
you.
go. I love it. I love it,
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you.
guys. I want to thank first off, thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Miss Merrily, for coming up here and sharing your words of wisdom and pouring into this topic. Guys, I hope you're able to listen. These shows, what PsychCandy is about giving you something that you're able to actually go and apply into your life to hopefully help you gain a better happiness, just a better calm, some mindfulness, becoming just aware. Listen, we are all human beings and we all need love. We need love. We need kindness. We need understanding. We need to be heard. We need to be supported. That's what we need. That's what we need. That's what we all want. You know. and in our relationships and our friendships and with our family, well, let's support each other. You got to let go of some of the, oh, you hurt me last. I can't believe you didn't pull my chair out for me, in front of all our friends. I can't believe you didn't do this. I can't believe you said this. Guys, let it. This is the one point I get to say it. Let it go. Don't hold on to like stupid, just stupid stuff that doesn't really do anything. And then we take these moments and we choose those moments to like break somebody down. I mean, I would. I love helping people. That's why I do what I do. But I'm not going to lie to you. I I wouldn't be sudden. Wow, I don't have as many patients as I used to have. I don't I don't have as many people. I don't have as many people are calling me up with like some easy stuff. I don't have that right now. I have people hit me up with all the hard stuff. But you know what? It's the same stuff over and over and over again. And that is, we don't listen to each other. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're going from one bad situation to another bad situation. Well, stop. It is that easy. Stop. Take a pause. Realize what you're doing. Realize that you're going from one bad to another and decide, I'm not going to do it next time because I deserve more. I deserve better. And you do. You do deserve better. We weren't designed to just deal with just heartache and depression and just being torn down and beaten down and devalued and demeaned and degraded and all these. That's not why we were designed. That's not what our scope is. That's not what a relationship is supposed to be. Aim for some reciprocation. But before you can do that, you better realize who you are as a person. You better realize your own position of how much do you love yourself? How much do you care about yourself? How much do you even understand yourself? Are you even friends with yourself? And there's a lot of people who truly asking that question, they think it's a funny question. Are you friends with yourself? Of course I am. Really? What's the last good thing you did for yourself? How much do you allow to come into your bubble? How much toxic do you allow to be connected to you? How many toxic people do you have in your life that you're holding on to for just like absolutely zero reason? You know? Start looking at this stuff, people. Start looking at it. How much dead weight are you carrying that you don't need to be carrying? You know? Listen, dead weight will drag you down. And guess what? That dead weight is going to drag down whoever you get with. And so now you drag that dead weight into that new relationship or that friendship or with family. And that dead weight, oh man, and it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And guys, mindfulness. Mindfulness. And I really do. I'm starting to get tired of saying the term. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it one more time right now, and I'm gonna try not to say it for a long time. Self-love and self-care. Now, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I'm telling you, self-love means that you are going to accept more than and not less than. Elizabeth piped in. She said, totally agree. I say the same thing. Got to love yourself and have a relationship with yourself first. Amen to that, Elizabeth. Amen to that. Absolutely. And if you're in between relationships, like you just broke up, I had this conversation with somebody last night actually, and they were like, "Man, yeah, I just got out of this really bad relationship." Okay, and literally while I'm sitting here talking to this person, they're already like, messaging somebody new, on Instagram and stuff. What the hell are you doing? What are you fucking thinking right here? Like, you just said you got out of a bad relationship, so why not just take a pause for a second, take a breath, and let's figure out what went wrong before and let's fix it so it doesn't go wrong again. And a lot of times it comes from that place where, oh, but I just don't like being alone. I don't like being alone. I need to be with people. I need to be with somebody. I need my relationship. Well, okay. Well, go ahead. And you're going to be booking an appointment with me within the next 4 weeks because you're like it's it's like running loose. Just all over the place. You're just scattered. You don't even know what you're feeling. You're still processing what just happened. And then, but somebody else, oh, they're giving you validation because, oh my God, you're so attractive. You're so beautiful. You know, well, that's great. That's great. But chances are, nowadays, most people we connect with, guess what? They're in the same boat you are. So now you have two people who don't know themselves, who don't have any of that self understanding, that self love, self compassion, all of these things, have the relationship with yourself. But you just found your next Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. Give me a break, man. Come on. And guys, here's the thing. The sad part is that yeah, young people today have a whole different focus when it comes to relationships, and a lot of it's really shallow. But the part is, what about us older folks who are out here doing this thing, and we're like, yeah, I'm in my 15th bad relationship. What have we learned anything yet? Are we gauging what we've come through and like aiming for higher? Or are we just hoping for the best and making it a roll of the dice? Guys, aim higher. You deserve more. We are all beautiful entities. We are all unique, our own beast, our own person, all of these things. And that becomes a place where start to demand more. You deserve more. You don't deserve to be disregarded, unheard, ignored, demeaned, degraded, devalued. We don't need all that, do we? We don't need all that. We need love and respect and understanding, all of that. Elizabeth just shared another comment. When the person lacks self love, they try to find love with another person. They will go from person to person for all the wrong reasons if self love is not there. I always say, you can't give what you don't have. How true is that, people? Well said, Elizabeth. Very well said. All right, guys, I'm not going to keep beating this horse. I I really do hope that you're able to pull something from this. Guys, you're all beautiful, extraordinary human beings, and you deserve more than, not less than. Don't you ever forget it. Don't you ever let yourself be taken down. Let yourself be lifted up. Okay? And also, me, all of us, let's be supporters. Let the person that you're with, that you want to lift and support that person higher than they've ever been supported and lifted before. And guess what? That love and that attention will come back to you. But you gotta want it. You gotta demand it. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. It's an action step. All right, guys. Much love, much light to all of you. Bright blessings. I hope you have a very blessed rest of your Tuesday. Please join me back tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. We're going to be talking about the continuing aspects of toxic relationships, and tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the differences here of really understanding what it means to be in a relationship with a psychopath, and when you're dealing with narcissistic behavior on the absolute extreme levels. That's sadly what is becoming a lot more present. And so we're going to be diving into that. I got a special guest who's going to be here tomorrow sharing a very powerful story. Don't miss it. Yeah, please give me a follow if you're not already. And I'm trying to follow all of you guys too. But yeah, be blessed, be healthy, make some good, healthy decisions and choices for yourself, and do something for you today. All right, guys, be happy, be healthy.